Hello and welcome. Finally, we have an economic package at a cost of 1.7 lakh crore rupees, according to the government, meant to address India's poor, whose lives have been upended by the lockdown.
We have come with a package which will immediately take care of the concerns, the welfare concerns of the poor and suffering workers and those who need immediate help.
And this comes not a minute too soon. As we and so many others have reported, millions of economically disadvantaged Indians are facing an economic tsunami. No work, no access to food, and for the urban poor, no means of getting back to their villages. Those who do try to make it back are being made to frog march by the police in these videos that you may have seen or you may have missed, because these are going viral. This particular video is from Uttar Pradesh, but there are similar videos coming in from other states as well, as the police stand and watch as these men, impoverished, are made to frog march. Let's look at another video from Rajasthan. Again, the same story. The police in the first case, in the case of Badaयूं, have apologized, but in the case of Rajasthan, again, a similar humiliation to those who simply displaced, unemployed, are trying to basically get back to their villages. Now, those who chose to stay back in the cities where they had come to seek work are on the brink, like at this low-income settlement in Delhi. When the media crews landed up, they were met with people begging for help with folded hands.
और हमें कुछ खाने को नहीं मिल रहा, हम चीज भी नहीं खा पा रहे। आपने सब कर दिया, दुकान भी बंद कर दिया, कहाँ से खाना लाएंगे? हमारे पास कुछ नहीं है। या तो हमारे देश भेजो या तो हमको कुछ मदद दो।
Now remember, the finance minister had also announced a 50 lakh rupee insurance cover to health workers fighting the virus for 3 months. This is important and crucial, but the focus understandably is on the measures for the poor for the reasons that you just saw. The big question is, does this package, the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, as it has somewhat avoidably been called, do enough to address this unfolding humanitarian crisis? Here's a breakdown of what's been promised and whether it measures up. The promise number 1 is that 5 kgs of rice and wheat plus 1 kg of pulses free has been promised, in addition to the existing quota of 5 kg grain that people are getting under the National Food Security Act. Beneficiaries, 80 crores. The government says this is costing them 45,000 crores. This frankly has been welcomed across the board as an excellent move. Promise number 2, though. Farmers are meant to get 6,000 rupees under the PM Kisan scheme in 3 installments. The government today said that the first 2,000 rupee installment will be released in advance. Beneficiaries, 8.7 crore families. The cost, 16,000 crores. We put a question mark next to it because this is an existing scheme with no additional benefit or cash out. The farmers would have got this anyway, even if there wasn't an epidemic. Let's go to promise number 3 now. Promise number 3. Narega daily wages have been increased by 20 rupees from 182 rupees a day to 202 rupees. This, the government says, will lead to a 2,000 rupee gain per year. Beneficiaries, 13.6 crores. The cost, 5,600 crores, says the government. But here's our reality check. The 2,000 rupee gain assumes workers will get 100 days of work per year. But only 2.6% of families get 100 days work. This is according to the Narega's website. Also, at 5,600 crores for 13.6 crore beneficiaries, that only works out to about 400 rupees per family, only 20% of the promised 2,000 rupees. Most importantly, multiple states have virtually halted Narega, unofficially or otherwise, because of the COVID lockdown. So how will enhancing Narega wages help when there's no Narega? The finance minister didn't directly address this dilemma when asked.
Of course, in this lockdown period and post that, even for field activities, the local district commissioners are empowered to exempt for agricultural work or something, depending on how they play it, with social distancing norms being respected. Where there is work, they can always do it. But matter of fact, this increase is now being given.
Okay, the fourth promise, 1,000 rupees have been promised across 3 months to poor widows, seniors and the disabled. 3 crore beneficiaries. The government says this is costing them 3,000 crores. Reality check, that amounts to just about 300 rupees a month. Is that enough? The same question also surrounds promise number 5, 1,500 rupees over 3 months to women who have Jan Dhan accounts. These are low balance accounts. 20 crore beneficiaries, the government says. The cost 31,000 crore rupees. But again, the reality check. This amounts to just 500 rupees a month. Again, is this amount realistic to carry people over a crisis? Promise number 6, the ceiling for loans without collateral for women's self-help groups have been raised from 10 lakh rupees to 20 lakh rupees. This, the government says, will benefit about 6.8 crore households. The cost, though, is not applicable because, as we point out, there's no cash out for the government. This is just simply increasing the cap on loans. So a welcome move, but the government is not actually spending any money here. Promise number 7, the Centre to pay Provident Fund contribution for employers and employees. The condition is this is for establishments having up to 100 employees with 90% earning less than 15,000 rupees a month. So presumably targeted small businesses. The beneficiaries have not been specified. Beneficiaries unspecified. Cost to the government 5,000 crores. Now this is seems to be a good idea, but there's a little bit of a mystery about this because the extent of beneficiaries is unclear. And finally, promise number 8, 3 gas cylinders have been promised free for 3 months. 8 crore beneficiary families, cost 13,000 crores. This, by all accounts, is a helpful idea. But let's look at where the overall tally of all this comes to. The PM relief package, how much of it is new and how much of it is old? If we can look at that graphic. So our estimates suggest that of the 1.75 lakh crores, new is actually only 1 lakh crore. 75,000 crore is actually from existing schemes. How do we arrive at this? Let's put the tallies up individually on screen. Food, grains and pulses, 45,000 crores. This is all new, by the way. Jan Dhan women is new, gas cylinders is new, Narega is new, Provident Fund payments is new, the payment to widows, disabled, etc. is new. That comes to about 1 lakh crores. But the PM Kisan is existing. The government has also asked states to spend from the Construction Board Welfare Fund that is kept for construction workers, 31,000 crores. That's also pre-existing. They've also asked states to spend from something called the District Mineral Fund, which we went to their website. It appears they have about 24,000 crore rupees in cash unspent. That is perhaps how we're guessing or guesstimating that the government has arrived at the balance 70,000 crore rupees. Okay, joining us tonight on the show, we have with us Yamini Iyer, President and Chief Executive of the Centre for Policy Research, a Delhi-based think tank. We have Praveen Chakravarti, Chairperson, Technology and Data Cell, Indian National Congress, and Brinda Jagirdar, Senior Economist, former Chief Economist, SBI. Yamini Iyer, now in this kind of scenario, I beg your pardon, also Ritika Khera is here with us, economist and social activist. Yamini Iyer, in this kind of scenario, obviously every bit helps. But given the magnitude of the crisis, could more have been done?
Well, I think first of all, it's worth pointing out that this was long awaited, 36 hours too late, but it's come. And the fact that the first big focus of the government is on addressing the needs of the poor and those who have been most affected by the lockdown is important and welcome. Right. Secondly, I think it's worth also recognizing that 2 very sensible approaches have been taken. Move cash and ensure food security. but the devil lies in the detail. And it's in the detail where I think many missteps have been taken. First and foremost, it isn't enough. Absolutely not. Whether we are getting new money or we are doing expenditure switching is not so much the issue.
Right.
The question is whether the package itself is sufficient to address the challenges that we confront. The choice of mechanisms that are being used also I find quite confounding. You pointed out the Narega issue. There's both the increase in wages is not as high as needed. Secondly, Narega implementation is actually not taking place. But even more importantly, Narega has a large amount of pending wages that need to be given. So
Right.
I would say the first thing to do right now is just clear all your arrears, move
Right.
those pending wages so that they reach where they need, and use the Narega accounts to transfer cash into people's bank accounts rather than going scheme by scheme by scheme. Also, this is not a time to target. This is not a time to target because you have a large number of migrant workers that are coming in back home with absolutely no means of verifying their own identity and whether they fall within the classifications or not. This
Right.
is the time to have taken the PDS system and moved it into a demand-based system. Anyone who needs food should be given it. Don't target.
Okay. You've said many things there. Let's sort of take them one by one. Ritika Khera, what to you jumped out as something which you thought was a good thing, and where do you think the problem lies? I think one thing I think everyone agrees is the fact that the increase in the PDS allotment, putting that extra food grain, doubling it, providing pulses, that's a good thing.
Yes,
Without a doubt.
absolutely. Yeah. I think the big gap really is, and it's very surprising because all of us are seeing images of these people walking home, being brutalized by the police, walking in the heat with little babies, no money, no water, no food. And what the government could have done is to use its excess food stocks to set up relief camps and community kitchens all over the place so that people stay where they are and don't panic in this situation. I think this is a really big gap. Again, as Yamini was saying before me, that these are people who don't have IDs, and if you just open langars all over the place, people will be able to self-manage these places. Schools can be used, community halls can be used, stadiums can be used to accommodate them and give them some kind of reassurance that they'll be fine even if they're not earning any money. So that was one big gap. Which is really baffling me because we know that this is, something all of us are bothered about.
Right.
On the cash side, if I can quickly say something.
Yes.
So, I'm very disappointed with the amount of cash that is being moved because, one, of course, I should welcome the fact that old people and widows are being targeted. I think that was a very good constituency to reach out to.
Yes.
But to give them only a 1,000 one-off transfer, I think is really not adequate because as it is, the government only gives them 200 rupees per month as a pension. So 200 rupees is nothing. The central government really should be increasing this contribution anyway, and given the crisis situation, 3,000 crores for this is not enough.
Okay.
As far as Jan Dhan is concerned,
yes.
it's a very unfortunate choice of base to give the transfers to, because one family can have more than one woman, and then you'll end up giving twice as much to some families, and many families will be left out. I would have much preferred that the government use the NREGA as the base for making these transfers, because it covers 14 crores families, which is quite a substantial number.
Right. Praveen Chakravarti, I think the question really here is that if you look at the, as some of the other panelists have pointed out, the current predicament that this crisis has dislocated millions of people who are on the move, migrant labor, daily wages and so on. While these measures are welcome, I'm not sure which of these directly addresses this current predicament.
Sure. See, I think first, let me say that it is a welcome first step. And from what I could understand from the finance minister's address, looks like this is just the first of many things. I mean, so I'm hoping there will be more to come. Now, as regards the really gory videos that we saw before of people being brutalized, I think there is also a timing issue. Just imagine hypothetically, had the Prime Minister announced these measures and then announced the lockdown, do you think these people would have panicked and gone and, in search of food or, without any income or jobs? So a lockdown needed a pay down, needed to go along with the pay down. And we didn't see that. And that, I think this gap led to a lot of what we saw.
Okay,
the third is,
yes.
Yeah. The next thing is, I'm actually a little surprised at the contrast between what the Prime Minister is telling us, which is it's an extraordinary situation that we're in. He's made 2 national addresses. He says it's a very serious situation. And on the other hand, the Finance Minister has not been nearly as bold as she could have been in terms of relief measures.
You think they could have spent more? The government could have spent more?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't understand the diffidence in this. So either it's a really serious crisis that we're in, and hence we have to provide an ample rescue package, or it's not a serious crisis. Which one is it?
Okay, fair point. Brinda Jagedar, I think the delay is, an important question that the government still has to address. The Finance Minister made it seem that we've reacted within 36 hours of the lockdown being announced, but why wait till the lockdown is over? If the idea of the lockdown, as the Prime Minister said, was to keep everybody in place and in fact not have millions of them on the road, shouldn't all of this have been done in advance?
We are in very difficult times. I think let's all acknowledge that these are not regular, ordinary times. When the Prime Minister said he wants to keep them indoors, it doesn't mean that you have to stay in places like major cities like Mumbai and Delhi, Kolkata. People, migrant labor, come in search of work and they don't have houses here to stay. They are staying 10, 15, 20 people in a room. So therefore, and when there is nothing, and they eat dependent on shops outside for food, if these are going to be shut down and there's no place to stay, then don't expect them to stay here and do what, and we don't know for how much longer. So it's the panic and uncertainty that really took the people back to their homes. At least they are safe and secure with their families. They need to be there. Now, is it enough? Is it too much? Is it? It's really not time to quibble on such things. I think it's a very good package and it's a very good start to begin with. There are several, you say there are some already existing. For example, the farmer scheme, for instance, but the government has said they're going to front load it. So give them the benefit, let them begin. It's really not time to quibble and say this is not enough and this needs to be done. There is more to come. So let's not forget that this is not the end.
Why? No, hold on. Why? I don't understand.
The truth I would like to say is that what I would like to see, the national health insurance for medical workers has been very good, but I would have liked to see bankers also included in that. Remember, they're also in the front line facing the customers. So, and the second thing is the cost of the kits, that is the cost of tests that the government has put in.
Okay, we're going. Brinda Jagedar, there's a lot. Hold on. Listen, we can get into everything, but let's take it step by step. We're focusing right now on the package, and this is not about quibbling. It's our job in a democracy to ask questions. The media will ask questions, the public will ask questions. There is a public emergency of sorts, there's a crisis of sorts, and how the government's responding is going to be closely watched and dissected. This is our democratic right, and we will do it again. And if the government is doing well, we'll praise them. If they're not doing a good enough job, we'll call them out. So I think several things that you said that the timing was fine, that workers are now safely in their homes. They're not. Millions of them are walking in the heat. They're being brutalized by the police. They're squatting in all kinds of makeshift shelters along the way because they say if they get out, the police is going to beat them up. They're also exposing themselves to the risk of infection because they're all packed together in these spaces. Now again, all this could have been stopped if the government had simply preempted it by saying you don't have to panic, you don't have to fear, you may be losing your jobs, but you're going to get income, you're going to get food, you will get supplies where you are. That has not happened, and that is a problem. But at the same time, again, all of us here, I think, have said that it's still good. At least we have something on the table. But Yamini Iyer, I have a few questions, one of which on the food front is how is this PDS going to be delivered? Because there are still lots of restrictions in place, and I'm not even sure if the government machinery is functioning to deliver the regular PDS, on top of which now there's this extra food.
Well, Vasu, before I answer that, just wanted to say one thing. As we think about an economic package, we need to think about it in through three phases. The first phase is how do you deal with this 21-day lockdown? The second phase is how do you deal with the immediacy of when you start loosening restrictions and people get back to normal life? And then the third would be an economic recovery. And in this in the first phase that we are in currently, for which I think is what the FM was addressing today, in these 21 days, first and foremost, we need to ensure that everybody who is trying to get home reaches home safely, and once they are there, that they have access to meals so that they do not starve and get to and are saved from destitution.
Right.
And it is in that context that the complete absence of any mention of what is needed to be done in the next 2 or 3 days at any rate to make sure that people are safely given a safe passage and reach where their final destinations are is something that we should be worried about.
Right.
Related to that, the issue of the issue of the public distribution system. What we are now going to need to do is to have to actually develop a very agile inventory management system. Because don't forget, as migrant workers are going back home, there will be some districts which suddenly have a large inflow of people, and there will be others where demand may be pretty much at the level at which it currently is. So that requires a very, very careful coordinated mechanism from districts to the states to the center to get the system to move. There are states like Chhattisgarh that have done a much better job of creating agile inventory systems, drawing on states to be able to build out these coordinated mechanisms very quickly is important, which brings me to the last point I wanted to make.
Yes.
It is not at this point, as Praveen said, center needs to be thinking big. We are in extraordinary circumstances.
Okay.
This is the time for the center to empower states, create a coordination mechanism, and allow states that are at the front lines of this to figure out what is the best way to deliver relief packages.
Right. So Ritika, a lot of states actually have been in some ways ahead of the curve.
Yes, actually the hope really lies at the state level, because not only are they thinking very creatively, they've also recognize the urgency of the situation and the people who are really badly affected by the economic crisis resulting from the lockdown, which, by the way, is going to affect everyone, not just the people who get infected by the coronavirus. So it's going to be much more widespread. As far as the PDS is concerned, I think people should understand that 2/3 of the population has been covered by the PDS since the Food Security Act was enacted in 2013.
Yeah.
This is a very important measure, and the doubling of rations is therefore massive relief for people.
Yeah.
Many states are actually used to lifting 2 months at a time because of the excess stock situation. So if you look at the portal of the state governments, you'll see that in many months they give 2 months at a time.
Right.
The government needs to, make sure that the fact that it is an essential service is recognized on the ground as well, because we have seen how the police have been harassing even essential service workers.
That's an important point, that recognize the distribution of food under PDS as an essential service. Brinda Jagita, the focus at the moment, as we said, has been on tackling measures for the poor, but you are also saying that it's also important to look at the next step would be, I mean, apart from perhaps enhancing these measures, to look at what is happening to the organized economy as well?
Absolutely. There are certain sectors which definitely need looking at closely and on a priority basis: aviation, transportation, hospitality. I mean, a whole range of which are labor intensive and which now really are in very bad shape. So certainly we expect some industry specific measures to come up. But, I think the state governments are also doing a good job, and everyone needs to put their weight in together. But now I think we've gone beyond saying a state situation where we say that the center should do this, the state should do this. I think we as citizens need to come forward and need to shoulder our responsibilities also.
Praveen Chakravarti, last word from you. Is the is the center? I mean, the center is the center, right? They have the deep pockets. They have steered the course of how all of this is unfolding. So ultimately, they need to take the lead here as well.
No, absolutely. And since citizens are being asked to do their thing, I actually did work out to the best of my ability a detailed package, where we call for a 5 to 6 lakh crore. Where I think it's very important, yes, the states are implementation partners, But let us not miss this whole thing. States do not have any taxation powers. They do not have any revenue generation powers. Everything lies with the center today after GST.
Right.
So let us not pretend that the states can just raise money on their own. They can't. They can implement. So I think the one big gap from what I had hoped, if I can call it a disappointment, it would be in the area of testing and treatment. Let's all step back and realize we are in the midst of a health epidemic. We need to test. We need to have treatments. We need to have protective equipment. In our package, we had called for a partnership with the private sector to allocate a budget so that the private sector can expand testing capacity.
Okay,
and
that's going into a different.
Missing.
That's a different debate. That's a different debate. That's a debate we're having every night with health professionals. But we'll have to leave it there. I'm sorry, I know all of you want to come in. We're completely out of time. But thank you so much for joining us.